everybody to our panel we have here. First of all, I want to welcome you to Psi Omega's second forum. It's entitled A Candid Conversation About Sex. But I want to introduce this distinguished forum. They didn't know they were sexy, but they are.
I knew it.
I knew that. I'm going to start with Rhea Chapman. Rhea is a master of social work, also a licensed clinical social work associate, as well as a safe sex educator, a reproductive justice activist, and she's currently employed as a clinical therapist for Melange Health Solutions. Next to Rhea is Alexandra Dean, who's a licensed professional counselor. She's currently providing therapy to youth offenders at the Mecklenburg County Jail North. She also supervises master-level interns who are aspiring counselors, and she is looking to begin an LGBT group for teenagers. To the right of Rhea is Jason Foreman. Jason has been the youth coordinator for EPY, which stands for Empowering Positive Youth, within RAIN, the Regional AIDS Interfaith Network, for the past 2 years. In this role, Mr. Foreman works with community agencies in providing guidance and assistance to HIV-positive youth ranging in ages from 13 to 24. He has been an active advocate in the HIV community and served on a number of community boards during the last 2 years. Jason has a passion for the population he serves, and his mission is to eradicate the stigma, stereotypes, and overall shame that persons living with this disease experience. We also have Hannah Stutz. Hannah is the non-traditional testing site coordinator in the HIV/STD Community Services Department at the Mecklenburg County Health Department. She's been working in HIV and syphilis testing and education in Mecklenburg County for the past 3 years. She spends much of her time at work out in the community offering the testing and education at locations such as the Urban Ministry Center and the LGBTQ Community Center. This is her 3rd year as a committee member for AIDS Walk Charlotte. Her background is in education as well as women and gender studies. Last but not least, we have Mr. Jermaine McKinley. Jermaine is not only a singer, songwriter, playwright, he's a dancer, choreographer, teaching artist, a producer, who's originally from Florida. He studied music at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte, and while there, he established what's called Motif Entertainment. Motif Entertainment is a production company which has made a definitive mark on the arts and entertainment in the Carolinas region. I've had the privilege of seeing a couple of his plays that have been wonderful. Jermaine is currently the program coordinator for the Empowerment Project Charlotte. These are our panelists. Can we welcome you? We're going to go ahead and jump right into it. This is just a few of us right now. I know everybody's coming. They're still coming. I want to get started with just one quick question just to get you guys ready for the questions that are about to come at you. When it comes to sex, the B in the LGBTQ comes to mind for a lot of people because bisexuals are attracted to both men and women. Which letter do you think is more active sexually? Anybody can jump in.
Well, in my job, I counsel people for HIV, so I talk to hundreds of people about who they sleep with and how they do it, and I would say, honestly, it has nothing to do with who you sleep with. We're all really, really sexually active people because sex is a part of everything we do all the time, whether we're actually putting anything inside of anything, we're breathing and we're thinking and we're living sex. And I don't call myself bisexual, I like to be pansexual because transgender people count and all sorts of stuff, and I don't think that just because you would sleep with anyone means that you're going to sleep with anybody.
I think in the last 2 generations that we've seen have seen this veil, this when you used to do this on Saturday nights with the curtains closed, music turned up so your kids don't know what's going on, that kind of atmosphere with sex has gone away. now sex is something that, almost as simple as shaking hands to some people. Unfortunately, when we look at it. And I think we've seen that in the past couple of years, especially the last 10 years, with HIV not being such a serious thing anymore. Now people are going to live forever, medications are great, what's the biggie? That people are actually becoming, we see 80-year-olds, 90-year-olds that are coming with STDs and STIs that are having sex in retirement homes. The best thing that ever happened wasn't Viagra, it was actually the retirement community when everybody's all together, right? So sex is something that we've done, something we're programmed to do, and we're doing, everybody's doing a lot.
So you pretty much don't think that it's any one particular...
They can do that a couple more times.
But I will say, I think if you were maybe to have asked the audience that, I think the generality would be gay men.
The perception.
The perception would be gay men, and where my drop-in center is located, it's funded to serve black gay men, but we're located kind of in the heart of Betty Sport Road, so we get a little bit of everybody that comes in our space. And we get a lot of straight women who come in and actually test positive for HIV all the time, and so what does promiscuity look like? I mean, does it look like me meeting different guys at a bar every night, or does it look like me having a few sugar daddies who, pay the rent here and buy the kids' school clothes here, and so what does that look like? But I think it really, as Hannah said, depends on the individual. I know young gay men who are celibate, and for religious reasons, because of sexual trauma, just because they were doing too much and felt like they were moving too fast. I know lesbian women who are in that space too, who are just like, I'm shutting it all down.
Right. And then just keeping along with those same lines, I had a question from the audience. How do you think we should combat promiscuity in the gay community? What's the best way to do that?
I'm going to also ask that last statement that I think that sexual orientation doesn't necessarily indicate sexual practices. So just because a person identifies as, LGBT or Q or whatever, doesn't necessarily suggest if they're having sex with anybody else along that spectrum either.
Right.
And then I think a common misperception is that because a person is bisexual, that means that they're having sex with men and women concurrently instead of consecutively. And most bisexual people may choose to be in a relationship with a man for this space, and when that is over, they may choose to be in a relationship or become intimate with a woman. So most of the time, it's not this sort of, I'm having sex with whoever when I feel like it. I mean, it's just a pretty good separation.
Well, I wonder if we can honestly have a discussion that we demonize the act of sexuality. And so part of being sexuality is being sexual. And people that choose to be multi-sexual relationships, we demonize that. And we say it's bad, and we say they get what is coming to them if something happens. But in all honesty, you have to really think about, is that not a category as well? Someone is sexual. I'd like to experience sex with many other people. What's wrong with that? If they're doing it carefully and taking care of themselves.
I think we certainly discriminate too against, bisexual people in the community a lot, because a lot of people, I know a lot of women that have sex with women don't prefer to have sex with bisexual women because of concerns about health reasons and STIs and transmission of these diseases and things like that. So I think, people who are bisexual kind of pushed to the side if you don't identify as one or the other.
Exactly.
I just have too much competition from all the guys in there, so I don't really...
Keeping along those same lines, it's said that being a lesbian is the safest orientation. Do you think as a lesbian you practice safe sex as much as you should, even though the risk may be relatively low to contract a disease? What do you think about that?
I have maybe counseled one woman that identified as a lesbian who actually said that they use protection. Dental dams are the number one throwaway that we have in protection. Number one. Nobody uses a dental dam. Nobody. Nobody uses them. People don't like them. And I think there's a common misconception that because a woman is having sex with another woman, there's no risk for any from Wisconsin and said, damn, did you know that you can get a yeast infection in your mouth? I said, that's just one thing you can get in your mouth. You know, you have to be, it's not just oral sex anymore. There's all of this whole world of toys and strap-ons and all of the things that we're using to diversify our sexual experiences, and those are great, but those are also portals to other types of issues and infections. Like African American women who are lesbians are the highest group of people who have bacterial vaginosis. That's not a sexually transmitted infection, but it's sexually related. And bacterial vaginosis, I brought some information about it. Bacterial vaginosis is really, vaginas are very complicated, sensitive little creatures. And basically, vaginas create everything they need to sustain their own health. Okay? The moisture that vaginas create on a regular basis is full of flora, good bacteria that are there to keep us healthy. You wake up in the morning, your vagina is wet. It has nothing to do with sexual arousal. Might, but it doesn't necessarily. Right? At the end of the day, every woman in the bottom of her underwear should have a thin layer of discharge. That discharge, when it dries, is almost always going to have a tinge of yellow. That's normal. That's natural. And when that bacterial flora, bless you, when that flora gets imbalanced, it can cause issues with bacteria. So bacterial vaginosis is just an imbalance of those good bacteria, so that way the bad bacteria are doing things and causing itching or discharge or burning, symptoms that feel a lot like a yeast infection, changes in the discharge, which, let's be honest, most women aren't sticking our finger in our vagina and saying, my discharge is very gummy today, very, you know, we're not doing that. So we're not very aware of the fact, like, you know, I'm not ovulating and my discharge is a little bit thicker. I think something might be going on.
Well, then walk around.
We don't really know. So BV is, you don't get it from sex, but if you're not sexually active, you can't get it.
Okay.
They don't really know why lesbians tend to have the highest rates of BV. They don't know why African American women have higher rates of BV. You can get it if you're douching. Your chances of getting BV go up. If you're, basically anything in your vagina that doesn't have hair growing on it shouldn't be touched with soap, feminine hygiene products, anything scented, or any water that's too hot. That shiny, pink, soft, tender skin, warm water, that's all you need because it's taking care of itself. So if we're putting other products in there, then we're changing the makeup of everything.
So should we be checking ourselves like this? I mean, should I be going in there looking for something?
Ideally, I mean, so part of, yeah. So like, there's a whole movement of natural family planning. So it's women who monitor the texture of their discharge to know when they're ovulating and when they're most likely to get pregnant, so that way they don't use any hormones. And ideally, all women would know, when I'm ovulating, my discharge feels this way. When my vagina is healthy, my discharge has this scent. Because all vaginas will have a scent. It's when we get to a smell that's not good, or it's changed, or it's very strong, that we need to be aware that something different is going on.
So if I didn't check, I would know this.
Right, exactly. And like I said, a lot of times we have that vaginal itching, and we think it's a yeast infection, and we go to Target or Walmart and we buy Monistat, and it works for a while, and we think, okay, I fixed it, but it could very well be something else, and without a nurse or a doctor seeing you, there's no way to know.
Okay. That's good stuff. I want to ask Alexandra a question.
Could trauma play a role? Brutal trauma play a role? It could. However, individuals, depending on how brutal the trauma was, they may most likely stay clear from wanting to engage in certain acts that may resemble and they may bring back certain traumatic events in their life, especially if they've been diagnosed with PTSD.
Right.
I wanted to add to that, as someone who and it's not something that I want all the time, but in an instance, because I guess I'm conditioned that way, so I'm a more dominant personality. But sexually, I don't mind a retreat from that way of being, in ways that aren't extremely painful or just, like, so that's why I say S&M related. So I don't necessarily want to be whipped, but I can be bound. I'm okay with that. And I can be talked rough too, and I can be handled rough, and I like that. And I've never had any sexual or emotional trauma in my life ever.
And I'm glad you said that, because one of the things that, as I read these questions today, I thought about was that it is so true where you have dominant personalities on an everyday basis and where you have to be in control every day of your life. Usually those are the individuals that in these situations don't want to be in control because you're tired of being in control. You want somebody else to take that over.
See, I'm the exact opposite of that. I'm in control all the time, and I'm the dominant one in my sexual relationship. I'm going to tie you up, and I'm going to hit you with stuff. And you're going to tell me that you're okay. I mean, that's, yeah. But maybe that's just because I need to see a counselor. I'm in charge. Like, there's no...
None of that.
No, I mean, I don't have any.
But you know what? That has to be a lot of pressure for you to feel like you always have to be in control, even in your bed.
Yeah.
That should be the one place that you can sit back and lay back and whatever happens just happens.
True.
Rather than you trying to coordinate that as well.
I know. I've got some issues. I'm not quite sure a therapist.
Anna, meet Alexander. You want to add it?
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, from a clinical perspective, sexual deviant or psychosexually disordered behavior is one thing, but S&M bondage is another thing. And so when you talk about sexual deviant, then you're more along the lines of zoophilia, pedophilia, necrophilia, all those, people sleeping with dead people, sleeping with animals, sleeping with non-human objects, children, etc. And by definition, I don't know what your license board says, but, by definition, people who are into S&M or BDSM, those are more like ways to enhance the sexual experience, and so it's not necessarily disordered. Now, in my experience with clients that I've seen, anytime that I have a person, I have several clients who like pain, but sometimes that looks like they have multiple piercings, they have multiple tattoos, they may like to be spanked, they may like to be tied up, etc. The only time that I would start looking at whether or not someone may be sexually deviant is if it's not just about pain, but it's about harm. And so there's a space beyond feeling pain and getting a high and getting a rush from that to I want to harm you. And then I want to see blood. I want to see, I may wish that you die at the end of this or something like that, which I've definitely had some experience with clients like that as well. And then 9 times out of 10, when people are into harming other individuals, then there is a history of trauma, abuse, etc. in their own personal history.
A little bit closer. How do you deal with a partner who doesn't want sex as much as you do? We're going to start with that part. How do you deal with that?
Change parts.
Yeah, funny. You better say that shit. Yeah.
Where are you?
The third question. I mean, sometimes you're in love. You don't want to just let go.
No, you
God knows.
I would tell you. I would tell myself.
Right.
You come to a compromise. Basically, you talk to them and you let it all depends, and I think that it depends on several factors. It depends on where we are in our lives. I think the older we become, the more we feel like sex is important, but sex is not everything. It does not comprise the relationship. And so when you are a little bit older and then you have a partner that's probably equally yoked, hopefully, you then start looking at things a little bit different. But when you are in a relationship, regardless of the age or maturity level, and to one individual is not as important, then that's something that you may need to talk to that individual about and find out exactly, is it me? Am I not doing something? Am I doing something? I know my colleague to my right mentioned trauma, sexual trauma, and what happens sometimes is I'm in a relationship with somebody and I was sexually abused, and the abuser used to, because I couldn't get wet, and so because I didn't want it, so immediately my body would not allow my vagina to get wet, so therefore he felt like he needed to put spit at the end of his penis to insert his penis. If I'm in a relationship and that person does the same thing, I can guarantee you will no longer want it. And so it may not necessarily be that, it may not be that you don't want it, period. It may be that individual or certain things that remind that person of certain trauma. There's also sometimes we have repressed trauma where we don't know, we can't recall it. And now there is a new, and you probably know about this, there is a, I can't say it's new, but it's relatively new for the other modalities that are out there. It's called EMDR. And so it takes you back to a place that you never knew that at 2 you would have a certain recollection of something and you can tie it to something you do today. And so there's certain things that we may do in our daily lives that we don't realize why we do it. There's certain things we may do in the bedroom that we don't even know how they came about. And this particular modality actually helps you reach all the way back, even to where you were in your mother's womb sometimes. And so, to answer that question, I would say just talking to your partner, just being able to see how willing are they, because they can say, I want to. It could be stress. It could be, depression. It could be so many different factors, the reason why they don't want sex. And it's going to boil down to you sitting there and talking to them.
With men, this is a huge issue because so much of, unfortunately, particularly as young men, so much of our identity and our pride about ourselves is centered around our sexual prowess. And I think I found, just a young man that I tested today, we had a big HIV testing that we had at my job. And most of the guys who said they didn't use condoms on a regular basis said they didn't because they can't get their dick hard with a condom. And it's because, they've conditioned their body to having unprotected sex. When they were younger, they had a lot of unprotected sex. And now that they're adults and they're dealing with men in a target population that's most at risk, they know they should be using condoms, but they can't get their dick up. And in the gay community, sometimes that can be something that won't just stay in the bedroom with you and your partner. That information would get out there. And so a guy will just go for it. You know what I mean? So you have a lot of guys out there, maybe, for instance, who have the conviction, man, I really need to use condoms, but I can't get my dick up, so what do? So they get in sexual situations, and just that anxiety. First of all, blood literally comes from a man's head and his feet to make the penis hard. And so when a man is not relaxed or is tense, like the doctor said, it could be a number of things. Stress for a man really affects sexual prowess, because if a man is stressed and tense or anxious, his dick is not going to get hard. So if I have a history of knowing that my dick won't get hard with a condom on, but the young man that I'm engaged with wants me to use a condom, then nothing's probably going to happen.
I think too, we live in a world that's full of all the different triggers. You have a job that's high demanding, family, you have all these different demands in your mind. And it does, the older you get, it does affect a lot of different things. And when I was in my 20s and 19s, sex would have been like every few hours and I've been fine. Now it's just like, oh, really? What do we got to do here? It all comes with having a conversation with your partner. Instead of calling your girlfriend or your best friend on the phone and saying, hey, this bitch, what the hell's going on here?
So how do you add, keeping along that, how do you add spice? This is part 2 of this question. How do you add spice back into the relationship?
That sounds fun.
Well, boss, you know how to get me off. Okay, let's go. You know, I have a menu that I give to clients when I test that is all safe steps, things that you can do without having any risk of HIV transmission. Masturbating next to each other, dry humping each other, having a condom buffet where you try all sorts of different sex toys and protection things, and it's not about, I'm going to get off right now. It's about real, actual intimacy, and that gets you out of your comfort zone and can be super sexy. I mean, think about the first time you ever dry humped somebody. That shit was awesome. That used to be like the best thing. And then all of a sudden, we get to the point where we're eating somebody out or we're getting a penis put in somewhere and we're like, whoa, this is great. And we don't think we can ever go back. You know, it's like every time has to be about that. It's going to go in here and I'm going to come and ooh boy, great. You know, it doesn't have to be about that. And we tend to go back to the things that we used to do before we knew what it was like to go all the way. Do you have any news with you today? No, I don't know. But I'll make sure to get it to Samantha. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to add too that, you know, communication, the two-part question about communication and sexual activity. So by the time, when I'm counseling families and couples, by the time sex is out the window, then this is a red flag to me that there's all types of shit going on. Because people's houses will be in foreclosure and they still having sex. Like, you know what? It's going down. And so one thing that is really important though, I mean, if, you know, in all seriousness, is, you know, someone, if you're noticing a change in your partner's sexual behavior or the level of attractiveness, or whether it's from yourself or from them, I think it's really, really important to be transparent about that. And you have to certainly be sensitive and open to that because, like she said, there could be, you know, depression, there could be, you know, some type of emotional thing going on, personal stress, you know, they gain 5 pounds and don't feel sexy anymore, whatever. There could be all of these things going on, but then at the same time, you have to understand that, or you have to be considerate of your partner. So if your partner is the person that is going to work all day and you're staying at home playing Xbox, then I mean, of course she's ready to go whenever she gets home. But you have to understand that there's all this stuff going on, and you have to also appreciate that sex isn't everything. And sometimes, like I know for me, as sexual as I am, I love sex all day or whatever, but I have definitely felt like a piece of me in relationships. Like I have definitely felt like, damn, can I come in and put my bag down? Do you want to hear about my day? Let me tell you what happens to me. And if you're like ripping my clothes off every 5 minutes, it shifts my focus in a relationship to like, who do you really see me as? Like, do you understand that that's one part of me and not my whole me?
I was going to add to, you asked about spice, how you add spice. And I think everybody goes back to when you first got in a relationship with somebody. So every person you get at the beginning, you try to, depending on your preference, sometimes you might want to do it right away to see what you're working with. You might not want to waste your time. Or you might want to do a benefits package and say, you know, after 90 days on probation, then we see if we're going to get you some benefits and what type of benefits you're going to get. And so during that time, you start doing certain things for this person because you're impressing them, you like them, you really get into them. And so, I don't know about y'all, I know that for me, when you're doing the right things, I'm being turned on every single day, more and more and more. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, do I have 60 more days? I don't think I could do this. And so, it becomes worse because they're doing those things and they're catering to you and it's just gelling. It just feels right with that person. And so, if you notice, once everything starts taking place, then it becomes routine, as everybody else has said. But if you want to bring spice back, you have to go back because it does not start in the bedroom. It starts in the morning when I say good morning. How are you? got some roast, don't worry about all that. I'm not feeling right. And so you do those things, and that's what brings fire back. When you are thinking about way before the bed, way before that, you have to go back to those stages where, excuse me, where it first started. Those little things that turn us on. So it's not just about bend this way, or lay here. No, it actually, by then, you're doing things that you probably had not done before. Just
If you want, I'm a huge sexter. Like, I would send.
I don't like for you to ever have something back on me, though. Because if we don't like it, you're not going to show this on me.
I mean, I guess I feel like, everybody's having sex, but it's like, I will send some titties in a minute. Like, some songs, whatever. Like, because to me, I agree with you, like, building that anticipation where you racing to get home and it's like naked in the car. You have to, like, build it up.
So then are you a fan or are you opposed to like date night and regular sex?
No. Everything, sometimes we get into routine. And so date night, I think, is key in every relationship. I don't care how long you've been with a person. I don't care how much you got going on in your life. And maybe at the beginning, you guys were able to go to Bentley's and Ruth Chris. And now, you may not be able to. You might have to bring it down to brick pizza. You may have to do McDonald's, and you may not be able to supersize. But guess what? But it's still your date night. You're still together. Pull away from family. If you have children, pull away from them. You need that me time. And people get lost in relationships with everything that's going on, and they lose their me. They feel like dating only takes place when I'm trying to get you. No. Trying to get somebody is difficult. Trying to keep them is even harder. And so, that's what we sometimes lose track of. Now, your second part to that question or comment was schedule. If it works, who am I to say don't do it? At the end of the day, each one of us will probably have something different of what works for us. So that's all what matters. If you have two consenting adults and it works for them, knock yourself out.
I'm going to jump into a different subject. This is number 2 on your list. Why is it sometimes looked down upon for women of the same dominance to be sexually attracted to each other, but 2 feminine women are more socially accepted?
Well, because I think it's hot to see that dominant women.
Women are just looked at as sexual objects in a lot of ways, whether it's intentional or not. We have these innate things that are ingrained. Then I want them to both be pretty, and that makes it acceptable. I think that it's just like how a lot of people are more accepting of lesbians than of gay men, because you can sexualize it and say, "Ooh, look at them, look at those chicks making out, and I can get off while I'm watching it."
But from a gay perspective, I think we, from an LGBT perspective, we heterosexualize our relationship. I mean, we talk about that in the interventions we do at my job. We hear this sound like a young bottom who's a submissive, sexually gay man will say, "I don't understand these bottoms being with other bottoms, and and these tops being with other tops when you got good bottoms out here." And it's like, it's so ignorant, you know what I mean? Because first of all, I love that that's happening, because I love that this newer generation doesn't really care about that.
Right.
This younger generation is not heterosexualizing themselves the way my generation did. You got to have a dominant dude, a masculine boy dude, and a femme or butch queen boy together. I mean, that's us heterosexualizing ourselves. We are of a different sexual orientation, and as a community of people, as an LGBT community, we're still cultivating, we're still defining who we are. So yes, I understand most of us have straight parents, and so that's the model that we have. But I think we got to look beyond those models about, first of all, it's what even straight people are doing now. What's working for the individual couple? So this whole, husband goes to work dynamic and wife stays home and straight community, those traditional dynamics aren't working anymore, but we still in the LGBT community are still trying to conform to that heterosexual way of being that really then puts us in a box all the more.
I would even add, you mentioned about coherent families and being more accepting. Well, everybody probably in this room will probably be able to say, well, my parents, when I came out, they preferred that they were not as upset because I looked feminine, the neighbors and everybody would be able to tell just when I'm in a relationship or just when I'm in the bedroom. So at the end of the day, it's socially accepted because people can't tell what you like or don't like. And then we live in the South. And so that makes it even much more better. But nonetheless, I think it has to do that we live in a judgmental society. And so people feel like they have to, whether they don't pay your rent, they don't do anything for you, but they want to criticize every ounce of your being. So it boils back to that, just being more accepted by society and so forth.
I'm going to take this to toy. Strap-on. Got a question from the audience, and this is basically, what is the purpose of a strap-on? Why does the person wearing a strap-on, what do they get out of it? I can answer it, but I'm not going to.
I can't answer. Well, I guess if you're asking me from a clinical perspective, I'm sorry. I guess because if it's not a real dick, I don't want it. Okay. So I'm going to tell you that from a clinical perspective, it's dominant. It goes back to dominance. It's dominant is if you're in a relationship where, as the gentleman at the end said, that you have already categorized yourself into roles. So if you have two females and you have, and I assume that we are talking about females when we're talking about straps. I mean, sometimes I'm females. Okay. And so, if you have two females where one has taken the role of the male and one is maybe apparently the female. So that person, you have two things going on there. You may have a female that may be bisexual and may want to still have that sensation. Or you may have a female that wants to be with that female but does not want to be with a man, but wants to have the sensation. And you may have that female who has the male role that wants to portray that image or wants to feel like she is a man, whether it's for a few minutes or not.
I was one of my colleagues.
I'm ready to talk.
My colleagues that are very heterosexual, but they have sex with their partners, their girlfriends that use strap-ons on them. But they're the most alpha heterosexual-minded person there is. But for this action, they actually enjoy it with their girlfriends.
First of all, strapping on feels powerful. I've never strapped on, but I've packed. And it was like packing is like where you put like a soft penis, faux penis in your pants to look like you have a pack of balls. Like female to male transgender will pack so that they can, if they haven't had surgery, and then a lot of times like if you're doing drag queen stuff, you will pack. So there's a powerful thing to it, and I think you can quite easily get sexual stimulation from palming that into somebody and that hitting you right there on your foot, and you're doing this, and it feels good. I'm married to a man, but I would strap it on and I'm sleeping with a woman, I'm going to want her to strap it on or fix me or do whatever she can to get me off that way. Did I say fix me?
No.
It's not that hard.
All right.
So,
Any more response to that? Anybody want to elaborate on that in the audience? I'm the moderator, so I think.
Okay. Oh, okay.
No.
Okay. I actually am in that situation now. I have a dominant partner. I consider myself Sam. I actually have been with men up until maybe about 5-6 years ago. So I actually had to deal with that in my mind, like, why would I be with a female when I can be with a man that can do the same thing that she's going to do by strapping on? But to me, I have to have that sensation. I have to have it because I've had it all my life. So to walk away from it, I guess that's a mental thing for me because I'm actually still trying to get that out of my system mentally. But I do make it as to where we only do it maybe twice a month. Because at that point, then I start getting my mind back wrapped around being with a man. Because if she's penetrating me that often, then there's something wrong with that, to me, physically. But I do need to have that penetration from time to time.
yeah, I mean, one of my coworkers, she cannot use a vibrator unless she's penetrating herself. She doesn't orgasm from clitoral stimulation. She only orgasms from penetration. I'm the exact opposite. I could care less if you put anything in there. So it's, all bodies are different, and that's the bottom line. When you talk about strapping on or using toys of any kind, everybody's body is different, and what feels good sexually is different for all people. And if a woman who is strapping on and penetrating you knows anything about what she's doing and about women's bodies, she's going to be able to work that strap on 100 times better than any man can work the penis or back to his body. Women know other women's bodies like, is the bottom line.
That's my mantra for gay sex. Like who knows what another guy likes, like another guy.
Right.
You said something. You said if you did it more than twice a month, that would be a problem.
Yes.
Why would that be a problem?
Because I guess I probably would be in the sense of saying, why not be with a man? If I'm having to be penetrated, because I guess my whole concept
So
was...
do you, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, so are you saying that you actually think about it and say, now, this was the second time, I know it's the second day of the month, that's it, we can't do it again until September?
No, I wouldn't really say that. I really would say that I guess my whole thing is, I guess it's really a stereotype, that I've been stereotyped myself to believe that me being a lesbian woman, now that I have crossed those boundaries, to believe that why would I leave a man to be with a woman who portrays to be that male dominant that actually has the actual counterpart of a male body.
But are you limiting yourself?
I am.
Yeah.
I think I would be. I mean, I am limiting myself because I guess, like I said, I'm just stereotyping what it looks
So
like.
you're
for me.
consciously giving yourself restrictions about how many times something can happen. And so when you're in a bedroom with somebody, you shouldn't have to have restrictions. You should be able to do whatever you want. And so you may just want to, you may feel that I'm going to go back. And necessarily that may not be the case because you may not want anybody else touching you but her.
Yeah.
And so that might be something you might want to process because it may begin to stifle your relationship in the bedroom.
Yeah.
So on those same lines,
I think the young lady over there.
somebody had a question?
Yeah.
I want to know what pansexual was.
Pansexual means that you could be sexually active with a man, a woman, Cancer.
You are.
Whatever you want to
You're
call
whatever you
yourself.
are sexually, and he's whatever he is. You know, like if he's now identifying as a man who is with women, then he would probably identify as heterosexual.
The beautiful thing about sexual orientation is we can call ourselves whatever we want. Who we sleep with and how we label ourselves doesn't matter to anybody really except for us. I don't care what you call me because I'm married to a man. I don't identify as heterosexual. And that's fine because I own it and it's my own thing. And you can put whatever else you want on me. It doesn't matter.
And I'm going to go back to,
Is she good?
so if you, let's say, you would have met this person already as a male, you never knew that they had been a female at one point, what would you then consider yourself?
Yeah, if I never knew, I was just, I'm thinking I'm heterosexual.
Right.
So if I'm,
But it goes back to what she said, which is the attraction, period. It goes back to attraction. Because I can tell you, I'm straight, but I can see another female say, nice.
Well, thank you.
So,
Appreciate that.
so I'm just saying, and I have slept with a female, but, you know, I can look at another female, I can tell another female, you are absolutely gorgeous, I have no problem with that. And it doesn't mean that I'm gay, it doesn't mean that I'm going to be, it doesn't mean anything, it just means, and maybe one day if I'm that attracted to that particular individual, it has to do with that individual. And so I think that, period, I think society gets so caught up in labels. And so we could just have to put aside the labels. As long as you're happy at the end of the day, that's all that really matters.
And I just wanted to speak to this because I'm being candid here. When I was in college, I dated a transgender male who no one knew was born a girl. Even I did until, a little later. And when we first were sexually active, I wasn't aroused. And so I didn't want to have sex with her because I loved her. I loved him. Right. Identified as a man. I loved him, but sex was important to me. You know, the sexual piece was important to me. And so I didn't want to have sex with him because it would remind me of how huge a deficit that was in our relationship. And I'm wondering, is it that you don't want to have the sexual penetration with your partner because it's a reminder that it's not as satisfying as the male sex? Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's another piece y'all should talk about later.
Okay, wait, so I have a question. So is this about...
You're not supposed to have questions.
This is your intervention.
Yes, thank you.
So is the issue that your partner isn't as skilled with the strap?
oh, she's skilled, she's been gay all of her life. So she's never been with a man.
But she's
But it
used to
doesn't mean that
having
you
a
feel
penis.
Yeah.
She's used to having a
Yeah.
penis for the majority of her
Yeah,
life.
yeah,
And it's just not the same.
yeah.
It's not the same.
Okay, it's not the same. And then,
Because she had my dude had a strap on. It wasn't the same.
I think sex is about what feels good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think I get it all the time. I love to be strapped, and people are like, oh, why not be with a man? Because I'm not attracted to men, I'm attracted to women.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, whether a straight man allows his girlfriend to penetrate him or whatever, like, sex is about what feels good, and it doesn't necessarily indicate your sexual orientation.
Okay.
But I definitely think there's a deeper issue there with you in terms of what's going on psychologically, and I may end up going back
Yeah.
and dating men if she continues to do these things. I think that's a separate piece altogether from the actual sex that's going on in your relationship.
So should you be concerned if your partner prefers using toys over oral?
It just went to right next to her.
Yes.
Mhm.
Good moderator. I don't think so.
I forget where to prefer.
I prefer my vibrator to my husband's penis because I can put that on and go to do what I want to do and be done in a second and go back to the laundry and then do what I have to do and it'll be fine. But he's okay with that because he gets to participate in it. I think that if I prefer my vibrator and he's not
jack off all the time.
Yeah,
And,
I like that.
I don't.
Yeah, I like
I mean, I
that.
like that. To me, that's for me. You know,
Yeah.
for me, that's foreplay.
I can get back at the in addition to, but not in replacement.
And we don't have to penetrate every time. So I'm cool with that. You know, I understand. You know, I understand.
I mean, I think if your sexual partner sucks, then, like, I'm the type of person, if you not
But that's
doing
all we
it,
want to do.
no. I'm saying if you're not I'll reach over that door and get it in, like, get off.
I'm not gonna get off on that. You know, see, and I understand you talk about what feels good. So I was sexually active very, very early, as a young person. And my first sexual encounters were with someone. I didn't masturbate until I was in my 20s. So passion and intimacy are connected to sex for me. That's why I'm not a one-night stand type dude. I'm a serial dater, unfortunately, but I'm always in a relationship because that's the only way I can actually have sex. So jacking off feels like something I can do singly. It's something I can do by myself. So so to me, to be in a relationship and that be our primary sexual activity was an issue for me. So it's not. So I'll extend this question to be: what if your partner wants to masturbate or self pleasure or use toys? Because to me, it's kind of intrinsic. Even if we can participate, because it's not like he didn't want me to participate, but there is a connectivity that happens with intercourse for me that does not happen with when we usually masturbate and things of that nature. So, of course, we're not together. That didn't work for me sexually. I don't feel like we were sexually compatible.
When I was in grad school, there was a gay man in my cohort, and he and his partner, that was the first time I had ever heard of it, he and his partner actually preferred oral sex and mutual masturbation because of their concerns about anal tearing and things like that. So they do not engage in anal sex at all. And I just, in my mind, I don't know why I thought all gay men,
Yeah,
No.
I had never thought about it. And he was like, no, we don't do that. We, mutual masturbation and oral sex.
How did you even get to that conversation?
That's all the time. So,
Yeah, there are a lot of guys that are just like, I know we do a lot of outreach on gay social networks, and men will put, and women will put what their preferences are on these networks, and you will see, particularly on male sites, you'll see a lot of guys that will say oral only, and some of the other languages that mean non-anal, and they're looking for relationships with someone, so you can definitely find somebody who, and I just wasn't that.
you're like, that's
I think that there's ways to use toys and have that connection. Women are lucky because we have our clit, and so we can use a toy on that while you put your finger in my vagina, or you put your finger in my anus, or your mouth is here, or whatever. We have a lot of versatility in that regard, and so I can get myself off in the way that feels best to me while you're participating, and that makes it nice to integrate toys.
So, on those same lines, when introducing a toy into the relationship, how do you introduce it to someone who's never used a toy before?
Yeah, very direct.
I would say, first you have to find out if your partner is willing to entertain the idea. And so, if so, ask them to give you a blueprint of how they would want it to be brought into the bedroom. And then just go from there.
I also think finding a sex shop that's not degrading and demeaning to who you are is really important. I'm from Wisconsin, and in Madison, where I'm from, it's like this liberal mecca in the middle of nowhere, and there's a lesbian-owned sex shop called The Woman's Touch. All the vibrators are out. You don't see pictures of women with big fake breasts, having cum squirted on them. It's very open and friendly. It's all women who work there. There's dogs there. There's quiet music. So you go in and it feels good and it smells good, and you don't feel like you walk on the set of a porn set, and so they allow you to be much more comfortable to experiment and try things, and information about from that store, A Woman's Touch. You can buy stuff from them online. They're amazing. Tips for first-time vibrator users. So it's information about good stuff. Yeah, it's good stuff. There's information about what parts of the vagina are the most sensitive, the different types of vibrators there are, and stuff like that. I also brought from them information on how to clean all different types of toys based on what material it is. You never have to buy, if you go to like Adam and Eve, don't buy the toy cleaner. That's a waste of your money. Antibacterial soap and warm water is all you need. That's here. And then I also brought information on all different types of lubricants because, like I said, vaginas are very sensitive, and so some lubricants have ingredients in them that can make women have yeast infections and other issues. And if you have a toy and it's new into your relationship, not all toys are compatible with all lubricants. So this gives you information on that too. And I just pulled all of this from their website.
That's good. So Anna has all this stuff, and I'm sure we're going to grab that from her. Yeah, grab it. And you gave us a brief thing on how to keep toys clean.
Yeah.
Basically water, warm water, antibacterial soap.
Exactly.
How should they just do it?
Okay, I would like to comment on that because you mentioned something just 2 seconds ago about the toy being new to the relationship, and I do not believe in bringing old toys to old relationships.
Right.
But I don't do that. But I have a funny story to tell about that. So I was dating this person, and we were having sex or whatever, and she decided that she wanted to trap me. I'm like, yeah, so it's dark, and I'm like naked on the bed, and like she jumped off the bed, and she's rummaging in her closet, like, like shit falling over, boxes and stuff. So I'm like in the dark, I can't see like what is going on. So I'm like flicks the light on, it's like Winn-Dixie bags, like, so she comes out with this like her strap, and it was like had like little like.
What's she come out with?
Long hair, cat hair.
Hey, Pat. I got a
But
good one.
anyway, I said that to say, so then the next person I was dating after that carried her strap in her lead and it turned me on, so she got to do this all the time. But I think it's really important to protect that, and my personal feeling about that is that if your strap is somewhere in a bag, on the floor, in a box, whatever, like you need to wash your strap like you wash your vagina. Like, if you care about me, like you're inserting something inside of me and you haven't taken care of it, you haven't properly cleaned it, like I don't care if you wear it in the shower with me, like handle that. So, and make sure that it's stored properly, so when I see the bag on the bed, I know to take my clothes off.
It's not take care of me. I'm also talking about, because there may be some individuals that now they're in different relationships and you may have children. I don't think you want your children to walk along your building. And so you might want to put that up somewhere.
I have a question.
Just like you lock the gun, then lock the drawer.
Can I ask a question? No?
Bags. No, I mean,
All right. Be quiet. My moderator.
I don't know if this is correct or not, because I've had a lot of people tell me this, and I was like, I had never heard it before. But someone told me that you should always use condoms with your dildo.
Can I ask?
Especially if you're the chick pulling her strap out of the big dick.
I got a good one. Hey, can I ask a question?
I didn't know if you kind of end up getting STDs and bacterial infections through sharing sex toys that aren't even condoms.
Really? How long did it live on that?
I just want a question. Yeah, I just want to know, y'all say that like you use antibacterial soap to kill, like clean the straps and everything, but I don't understand, like some women that like I've dated in the past say they don't want me to like recycle the strap, but if I'm use antibacterial soap. I don't understand what the problem. And I try to use condoms, and they always tell me I don't want to use a condom on a strap. But so why am I wasting money if I'm having sex a lot with different partners? Like if I could just use isn't that safer than a real penis if I'm washing it?
I don't require a person to repurchase a strap unless we're in a relationship.
But what if you haven't said? What if you're in a relationship with a man? You don't say I don't get a new penis. Like.
I agree with you. It's just that people.
Okay.
I practice safe sex regarding any of my sex.
Okay.
And so it's just my personal preference. Like I don't need to get into like how many cleaners you put on.
Right.
And then also get into like the care of your
Right.
right. So if there's like if it's raggedy because you've been it, like you got cut.
No, I feel you on that. But
like,
you recommend using a condom on it though.
Yeah, but also you should be replacing your sex toys.
Anyway, right, I feel you. I know that part.
For 5 years.
But a lot of them tell me they don't like the condoms, and I don't understand that. I thought it'll be more comfortable if you put a condom on it, right?
Sex toys are made to feel good without a condom on them.
Okay.
Technology is amazing, and so silicone can be very sleek and warming and sensitive. So when you throw a condom on there, vaginas aren't endless about moisture, and latex in a not super wet vagina is really uncomfortable.
Okay.
So using added lubricant is always
You gotta get that thing wet. I see.
Yeah, adding lubricant is always a good thing to do, but you have to be conscientious of what kind of lube you use based on what kind of product you have.
And it's important for anyone that missed the point that Hannah made earlier when we first started, if you weren't here. STDs can be spread with toys. So it's important to keep in.
I wanted to say something to
Devon, yes.
Devon.
Hey.
And going back to what I said earlier about with sex beginning before you get to the bedroom, you and that person go and purchase dildos that can enhance your relationship as well, because then it's different because you two got it together. So now that's something else you have in common.
What if I'm going to have casual sex with someone that uses a strap on? If I'm going to have casual sex and use a strap on, like you, I want it to be that it comes out of a sleeping bag, it looks like it's been taken care of, and then I'll feel like, all right, I got nothing to look at it. Same thing with real penis.
Okay, we're getting short on time, and we do want to give out the prizes or gifts that we have. So I'm going to go ahead and ask this next question. It's not on your list. Got it from the audience. And it's, what are your opinions on threesomes or introducing multiple partners as a team?
That's the same damn thing.
This is one of the things that, I deal with a lot of especially with those in long-term relationships, they actually start bringing in thirds or fourths into their relationship. They even have the polyamorous relationships where they're actually three equal partners in a relationship. And I haven't had much experience going into the lesbian field with that behavior as of yet, but I don't think it happens. Quite sure it does. I think if you're having a relationship consensual together, it's fine. But it never ends clean. I can tell you that. It always ends in a big focus moment.
I think that the bottom line is any relationship has to be based on effective, constant communication, especially if you feel like you want to integrate anything different or new into your sexual life. You have to have boundaries and guidelines before you do it, because then if you don't, and you just are like, oh, she's cute, let's take her home and have sex, after you're done, somebody's going to feel horrible, and it's going to ruin your relationship.
And Jason said, I've never seen the outcome be positive. Not one time. I would set up heterosexual friends, lesbian friends, gay friends. Never once have I ever seen. I've seen great relationships end because of it. Because I don't know if this breaches something. I don't know. I wouldn't do it for that reason, particularly if I was in a committed relationship. But I think as it relates to a casual instance, and my philosophy about casual sex, and we were talking, I think one of the questions earlier that I don't think we ever answered was, is promiscuity good or bad? I don't even like to use that word. I just think that whomever I'm having sex with, as Hannah said, there needs to be communication. child of God and I'm a child of God, and we need to treat each other with love and with charity and with honesty at whatever level of commitment that we have, you know. So even if I'm having a casual sexual relationship with somebody, I don't have to denigrate them in any way.
Unless they like that.
Unless they like that. Yeah.
Is there still an AIDS epidemic?
Hell yeah.
There is?
Yeah.
I haven't heard of
Have
that.
become less or more promiscuous with the introduction of the medicines to treat AIDS that are making people live longer, feel better, look healthier. Do you think they're becoming more promiscuous, or do you think it's
A year ago, and Darren is my colleague here, worked for Carolina Care Partnership. I took him, a young man, to get tested because his partner was HIV positive. And this is a 19-year-old young man, 18-year-old young man who's still in school at the time, graduating. And this was my first time. I just got trained in how to do post-test counseling and pre-test counseling. And Darren allowed me to sit in with him as he was doing his testing. And I kind of knew what the outcome was going to be. But anyhow, we went through the testing, and this little 18-year-old young man, Darren, tells him, well, based on your rapid test, your test has come back positive for the HIV virus. And my heart dropped to the floor, and my composure was like someone telling me, but this 18-year-old young man was like, okay.
What?
All right, so what's next?
Wow.
So, you know, it just, and it took a very long time for me to deal with that response, that he was just so nonchalant about it. And a lot of young men, a lot of young women are feeling that way, that it's easy now. No one's dying from it anymore. We don't see any wasting, we don't see any sarcomas, we don't see any of that anymore. But there are people still dying every day from this disease. And I see it myself. I lost an 18-year-old client last year, my first one. And this 150-pound young man, when I met him, I gave to his parents in a box that was this big and this big. So people are still becoming infected. We see so many people every day. Mecklenburg County is the highest rated county we have for infections. And what scares me the most is that it's a young man or a black woman. And it's an epidemic. The Southeast is having an epidemic. Washington, D.C. has the AIDS rate of a third world African country. This is the capital of our nation.
And it's only
But
7 miles apart.
30 years ago, we started this fight. And 30 years later, we don't talk about it. It's not on CNN. You don't see any stars flying Africa and having free concerts anymore. But yet, who's infecting the most? 54%, 65% of all the new infections are black. We account for how much of this population, of this 280 million people living in this nation, and we account for 65% of the 1.2 billion people living with HIV in this country.
And the statistics now say that if we keep going at the rate that we are with minority men who have sex with men, that by the time young men now reach 50% of black men who have sex with men will have HIV. That's disgusting.
What, in D.C., what is it, 4 to 10? So you put 10 black men in a room, 4 of them will be HIV positive.
And I think also to kind of go back to your question about, is it that people are having more sex and they don't care because we're living longer? I think the other side of that is not so much that people are having more sex. I think that people are still afraid. I think that people are still not being educated enough and doing reproductive justice work and work with HIV/AIDS organizations. And I'm going to these communities where there are women, so you get into the psychosocial issue of, women, straight women who are in relationships with men who are still not using protection, or there's no access to contraception, literature, et cetera, in the communities that they come from. They don't have medical insurance, they don't have all this sort of stuff. But you still have women who are listening to their partners when they say they want to use a condom. They're like, oh, that means you're cheating on me. Oh, that means that, you don't trust me or you don't love me, blah, blah. And women are making choices every day and gambling with their lot of miseducation still. I still deal with people on a daily basis that still aren't clear on how HIV is transmitted. People are still, like, and one of the most profound things recently, well, not necessarily recently, but in the movie Precious, and I just thought there was a piece where Monique was like, no, we weren't having anal sex, that's why, I can't get AIDS. And even though that was a movie, I'm like, that's so relevant right now that people still associate this disease with gay men. You know what I mean? And people, it's like we're missing it, and especially in our communities, our churches, our homes, our parents. And I have a young lady who was at my house a couple months ago when I was moving, and slightly graphic, but she was obviously on her menstrual cycle, and I knew that because I smelled it. And I went into my bathroom because I was doing something, I bent it over, whatever, and I smelled like my trash can was like on 10. And I was like, what the hell? And so she had a sanitary napkin that she had placed in there. And so I called her because I was really concerned, and I was sharing with her, I was like, your cycle should not smell like that. Like, you really shouldn't be able to smell it. Like, something's going on, you go to the doctor, whatever. But it started this thought for me around, especially in African American communities, that moms, mothers, aunties, whatever, need to stop acting as if teaching your daughters about their bodies is going to turn them into like hoes and sluts. Because the reality of it is that they're going to have sex, they're going to grow breasts, they're going to grow butts or whatever, and it's like so much in our community is the only time you're going to take them to the GYN is because you're trying to find out if they're having sex, and it's like, oh, I'm going to take you, to see if you've been having sex, and it creates this heat in these women so that by the time this woman was 23 years old and thought that the reason why she smelled like that was because she was sweating. And I'm like, 23 and you don't know that your menstrual cycle, your vagina, none of that is supposed to smell like that. Because she's never been to GYN because she's gay, and her mom kept trying to say, oh, well, you're having sex. I'm going to take you to the doctor so they'll let me find out. So it created this fear that even when she's out of her mother's house, she's not going to the GYN.
And that brings me to another point, the importance of dominant lesbian women going to the doctor.
Absolutely.
To get themselves examined and checked out. There's so many that I know personally that I'm not going there, I don't do that. It's not necessary, and I try to convince them.
I think
You still have to
Just
make
because you're
that.
not being penetrated doesn't mean you
Right.
check it
Well,
out.
then also that it makes you feel effeminate, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you disassociate with your femininity, then you aren't going to go to have a breast exam or have a pelvic exam. It's very similar to when you see transgender female men. They don't want to go and acknowledge that they still have female parts because they are a man. And so it's very similar, I don't want to think about my breasts. I don't want to think about how my breasts may have lumps in them that cause cancer. And we have to get past that kind of stuff. And just because you have a pelvic exam doesn't mean that you're any less dominant. It means that you're more strong and dominant because you care about your shit.
And isn't the other piece, the scrutiny and the stares that they would get once they walk in the OB?
Yeah.
What's it called, the OB?
Because they present like some people you can't even tell.
And
called, and so they have a very comprehensive program. So they do family planning, they do pregnancy stuff, they do like screening, blood work. I mean, like you were going to a regular physician's office. It's a huge.
That's huge.
Complex.
I'm personally going to look into something like that, or at least getting the information out to the community. And because we're constrained for time right now, I just want to first of all, Sam, you made an excellent choice with this panel.
Yeah.
I would love to have another part two. Part two. But I just want to thank Jermaine, Anna, Jason, Rita, and Angela very much. You guys did an awesome job. I really appreciate you.
Thanks for the education.
Okay, for audience, those that show up, turn out.
Yeah.
So, make sure you grab yourself some wine.